Hello everyone. Is it audible enough? I'm Ameya and good evening to you all. So firstly, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Firstly, has anyone ever spoken without being heard? Anyone of you guys have spoken without being heard? Yes. How does it feel when people say, calm down, relax, or sit down? Or what about being mocked with, get yourself up altogether? How are you going to handle that situation? Why is an upset Ranbir Kapoor often sympathized in Ajab Prem Ki Gajab Kahani, but an average Joe is mocked, ignored, or offered a plethora of unasked for solutions for his naughty tongue? This average Joe cannot do a lot of stuff, but he cannot embark on a journey of self-discovery just after a moment of depression. He can just continue to just go with his life and continue till his moment of revelation. All right? So people have feelings that can be expressed into mere words, which is difficult at times. But for me, it's a different story altogether. तेरी इतनी बजाई और फिर भी तूने कुछ नहीं बोला. I awkwardly smiled. How do I answer it? How do I explain these words that get twisted at the very last moment they don't have to? Backfires altogether. It ruined my moment back then. Now I have this pretty girl who comes and say hi to me. I was stunned. Why? Because it's not usual for me. And my stutter mode is about to back in. And I'm like, I just go with an awkward hi. I'm like, with all my senses, get a grip, manage your reflexes. It's possible. At that very instance, there is high probability of a slap being placed strategically across my face when I speak too much. But somehow, I just managed saying, I control myself off. I'm not going to blabber a lot for people to know that I stutter. So I'm just going to speak about my journey now. All right. Everyone has felt that Dalshil Safari moment where words were flying, right? Letters are dancing, correct? And it's difficult to connect. For me, that's almost an everyday story. It's an almost everyday story. Those letters dance right in my head. It's very difficult to connect. Yeah, it's pretty bad. What I did next was, I just stayed numb, take a deep breath, and relax. I had nothing to say. Thereafter, I just keep walking, just to avoid people's attention altogether. I have nothing else to say. This is something that I've been all the time, for all the years, for 8-9 years. Back in school, I wasn't able to talk to my fellow mates just because I couldn't speak properly. I had severe issues where mispronouncing words was very often, but I pulled through school. Back in college, I wasn't able to speak a simple sentence, as simple as flying the kites. I ended up mispronouncing that as well. I again felt bad. That moment was disastrous because I wasn't able to say kites. I said it kites. People found me incompetent to be friend with, so I had no friends. I always lived in an air of anonymity. And even back in school, I was always the lost guy. Coming back to the good part. One day, I just see myself in the mirror. I've tried ample of solutions. Earlier, I thought stutter is something that is not common to me. I thought maybe I felt I wasn't putting enough efforts, or maybe I was not saying things right, and it took a toll on my confidence. But again, silence. This is what it becomes really difficult for me, but I'll still continue. I was supposed to do it all by my way. And I couldn't speak a single word. Again, a situation which is something that I'm found with. It is something that has always been part of my life. I mean, I take pause of close to 10 to 15 seconds or close to a minute at times, because it becomes really difficult for me to speak altogether. It might be easy for you guys to say it all together, but for me, it takes months of practice to come up here and speak. So yeah, continuing to what I said, fueling to this, I had my mom who just stood by my side, and I had those moments where my mom would just go to the astrologist to figure out if there could be a possible way to get out of this solution, but there was no way out. So again, I turned on a different solution. It's very difficult to understand the magnitude of a guy who stutters because he can't speak fluently at a go, correct? So what you do in a normal situation is you take pauses, and that's how you expect the audience to be a bit empathetic with that as well. So yeah, so continuing with that, my mom actually had a feeling that he won't be able to achieve really much in life. But again, back in college, I was able to do something really different. I was part of a team wherein we were supposed to participate in an IC engine workshop which was based at Chennai. And there we were working on a project which was themed on deriving more power from the engine. All right, so so we were working overnight on that project, and and we had to submit the project next day. We had to submit the presentation next day. We just continued to work on it. But I had an idea which actually people were pretty impressed at. They said, you aren't going to succeed with this idea, you aren't going to impress the panel because you don't know how to speak. How are you going to do it? You take long pause, you take pause close to 15-20 seconds at times, and it becomes really difficult for you. How are you going to manage to convince the panel over there? Somehow I was able to apply some concepts that I studied in my second year of engineering that was based on thermodynamics. It was pretty difficult for them to understand because none of other people out there did come up with something substantial. But I just had an idea, and I fought to be the presenter to the panel. The panel seemed skeptical about the idea earlier. Later on, they agreed after verification, and I was awarded as the best presenter for the event. So it is something, there are few moments that have happened in my life. Back even in 10th standard, my anxiety and my stammering was at peak. And I told my mom there was no way I could pass for my language paper that was held next day. And she just said, obviously you have worked for an entire year and there's no way that you could just give up now. So you have to prepare. You have to give it a shot. Maybe even if you fail, that's okay. I don't know how I managed to do it. I gave the language paper. My all papers were horrible, weren't at par at what I'm really used to. 3 months down the line, I come to know, 2 months down the line rather, that I stood first in school. So it is something that I've continued to live with. There have been moments of darkness for years, for decades, but I have some glimpses that have come in my life, especially during the engineering period, even in my 10th standard, I've continued to live with it. I've accepted myself wholly with my follies, and this star of I intimidate pretty girls sometime, but I just want to say you are just you, and that's the best thing that you could be, yeah, that's how it should ideally be. And the final sentence I want to repeat is, I know stammering would be a great issue it might not be an issue for someone to look seriously with. People might find it quite a non-serious issue, but it is something that you can definitely work on, and it can definitely be overcome. I'm still working on my pauses. Maybe it is limited to 30-40 seconds, but I believe I can definitely come out stronger. So if you say if I could speak it in Go, I'm pretty fluent. But the only reason being I take pauses. So I just want to convey, if you feel that you have lost your perspective about your self-worth, I think you have someone to look up to. All right? Thank you so much.